Ubuntu. Again, when we're doing Ubuntu 22.04, when you first pop it in and boot from it on your computer, on your virtual machine, whatever you're using, it'll ask you if you want to try or install Ubuntu. And you just do enter on that and give it a few seconds. It will turn on the display. Right now the GUI is loading, and it will give me a nice desktop environment where I can choose to just click around and play with Ubuntu, try it out like on a in memory, basically. You know, it's loading everything into memory. It hasn't installed anything yet on the screen. It'll give me the option to either install it or give me the option to just play around. So this is Ubuntu. You know, usually after you install it, you'll have like more stuff you can type in, like I don't know, I'm going to type in like terminal, and that will go search a bunch of my files, a bunch of my apps and stuff to get the terminal app. This is the command line, as a lot of people call. You know, you can list the directory. There's the home directory. You can list the desktop directory and see what's in there. We can see ubiquity.desktop. That looks like a shortcut. What a file name looks like as a shortcut for the installation icon, as you can see here. We can look at the disk and what it's doing right here. You can see it's got this temp file system right now. Again, it's loaded everything into memory. This will look a lot different once you install it to disk. And you can also say, who am I? I'm Ubuntu. This is the Ubuntu user just by default. It boots as. If you want to open a window, a file window here, so Nautilus is the default. I tapped NAU and then tab button. Tab is autocomplete. It defaults to Nautilus. That's like open the folder to the current directory I'm in, which is dot. Dot is short for the current directory. Type that. It opens me a file explorer here for the home directory, which is where I'm at. So little shortcuts like that. You know, I've been using Linux for, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 years, probably 20 years at this point. A lot of times as my own desktop and such. So I'm pretty proficient at it at this point. I've installed it, gosh, hundreds or thousands of times. I would say I've ran through Linux installations of tens of different distros probably. And Ubuntu is one of a bunch of different distros. There's Ubuntu, there's Fedora, there's Debian, which is a lot of stuff Ubuntu and otherwise it's based off of. There's distros that have distros that are based off of those. There's like kind of like a blockchain, like a fork of a fork, kind of like that. So if you want to play around with it, you know, you got Firefox here too. It's also a great time. Some people want to boot a live CD because it's a temporary in-memory environment where they'll go generate keys or something. You know, this is also a way to generate secure keys because nothing's on disk. It's just a one-time environment, and you can generate your keys from here, plug in a USB, pop them off, take them somewhere else, and now you've got you know, that temporary just ephemeral environment that you don't have to worry about keys being stuck on disk somewhere or transferring back and forth or securely deleting because they are removed from memory. I guess, you know, if you want to take the memory out and throw it away or securely destroy it or otherwise, if you want to be extra careful, but you know, usually that's like a common, easy way to do it. Just load something in memory, generate whatever you want to do whatever you want to do, and it goes away as far as file system stuff goes. Just make sure you copy it before you pop the image back out. So that's the command line. You know, it's got an email program here. Again, File Explorer to, you know, downloads. You can do torrents. You can do all kinds of stuff. It's got, you know, audio players. Everything you can do on Mac and Windows, you can do on Linux in some form. It may not be the same app. You can also run virtual machines on Linux if you want to install Linux on your computer and then run a virtual machine to run Windows on your Linux computer after you've already converted over. You can totally do that. I'm running Linux on Mac right now. As you can see, if you have Windows computer, you can run Linux on it and have this little window that just has Linux, just like a web browser, except it's a window for a virtual machine. So there's a lot of different ways to do it if you want to get into it. So I'll get to chat in just a moment. I want to start the install and make sure that goes correctly. So I'm just going to double click here as I have install Ubuntu, pick English as the language, pick English US keyboard. And then to make this go faster, normally I would leave this checked, but download updates will just saves you time so you don't have to do apt update, apt get, apt upgrade, and install packages and stuff afterwards. I'm going to untick it just to go faster on the video, and I can update later. I'm just going to erase disk. Again, if you want to do fancy partitioning and stuff, you can. If you want to dual boot Linux, some people do that as well. Dual boot, when you boot your computer, you can choose either Windows or Linux. You can do that as well. I'm not going to show that here. I'm just going to show, hey, this is a blank disk, like a new computer, a new virtual machine. I'm just going to erase the entire thing, whatever's on there, which is nothing right now, but just formatting it to install Ubuntu. So I click install now. It's asking me, am I okay with these partitions? In the old days, you'd be like, yeah, I want to partition myself. I want to make sure everything is like super performance and stuff. But here it's like, the default these days work for most people. So I accept your automatic formatting for me there. And then you pick your time zone. You just, you pick LA, New York, wherever you live. And then your username, I'm just going to use PLS. And then your computer name, I'm going to use, let's see, how about Number Cruncher? Let's do that. And then pick a password, pick a secure password, not a weak password, not a fair password, but something more secure that's just for demo purposes. So it's not a super secure one. But if you're always remember to do more than that if you're not doing a demo. If you're doing, make sure your demo is never connected to the internet or anything like that, of course, or otherwise. Now it's got everything it needs. Again, really simple, very few buttons to click, very simple to install. It's just copying the files, then it'll start installing them on the file system, and it should finish up. If you want to go in nerd mode, click the down box. You can see that it's what it's doing in the command line. This is a GUI. It just represents what's happening in the background. It can tell you a few things that's going on, and then a nerd mode there as well. So we'll give it just a minute, and should take much time. So again, there's a bunch of different Linux distributions. There's Ubuntu, Fedora is another popular one. There's Mint Linux, which is pretty popular as well. I've seen them come and go, throughout the decades. But again, everything you can do on Windows and Mac, you can do on Linux. Maybe a different app, maybe a different program, but generally a lot of stuff is the same, especially if you use a web browser. So that's what's cool. The easiest thing about transitioning, and I've said this before too, if you want to transition, you can, just get an extra computer, get whatever, install Linux on that, and then make that I need to do something important on this computer regularly. Like make that your email computer where you check your email, make that your media player, make that your chat computer where you have Telegram, where you have whatever installed. And then keep your other computer, keep your Windows computer. And then just over time, you'll just get more and more used to it naturally because you need to use it for certain stuff. And then if you decide you like it, then you can just go on. And maybe if you have like a nicer, faster computer, your main computer, you can format it, copy all your files, back all your stuff up, of course, and then put Linux on that if you've gotten used to it, or you just always keep that Linux computer to the side when you need it. So if you're doing a PulseChain Validator, Ethereum Validator, whatever, you're going to need another computer of some sort, either in the cloud, or I wouldn't recommend virtual machine for that. I would dedicate a computer for it, like a NUC or just some other server you can put in the corner and not to worry about, as long as keep on battery backup, all that stuff that I talked about before. So learning Linux is good for that. It's just kind of good to get to know how your computers work, and Linux is not going away. I mean, all the cloud providers, most of the internet runs on Linux servers. But back to the easiest thing about the transition. So web browsers, everything, Linux can run Chrome. It can run Firefox. It can't run Internet Explorer stuff. I mean, it technically can. I'm sure people have done it, but it's not something that normally people do. You can just use Chrome or Firefox. Ubuntu comes with Firefox installed by default. So once you have the web browser, that's kind of like, for most things, they work cross-platform in the same web browser. So all the extensions that work on Windows for Chrome or Firefox will work on Linux or Mac with Chrome or Firefox. So MetaMask is going to work. All the other extensions are probably 99% of them will work. It's just kind of one of those layers that is common between them, because you're not using the operating system at that point very much. A lot of things are abstracted away. You're using the web browser. That's the playground. So it's almost finished installing here. And then after that, I'll go back to command line. I see you got a question there. And yeah, this is a pretty quick process. Like I said, it's taking, what was this, maybe 5 minutes? 5 minutes to install after we just click through a few buttons. Pretty straightforward. I think this is, it's you got to know a little bit about computers. You got to know a little bit about Linux, there's a great course that I've tweeted about before that I can share as well. Or you just type in YouTube, Linux command line basics, and there's a course you can take the first 10 lessons or so of that really help you wrap your head around this stuff. But yeah, I just want to show how easy it is to install it. And now it's got a restart now button. I'm going to eject the disk. So before I restart, I'm going to, let me eject the disk on the main app. 1 second. All right, let's see, can I do it from here? Should be able to. Well, I'll just do restart now for now, and then I'll power it off manually and reset because I need to remove the ISO image from it. So just a moment. So I'll just go in UTM, remove the basically CD-ROM drive that boosts the ISO, and I will start it back up. Share it back again. Now it's booting back up. Give it a minute again. It's just loading everything. I'm only giving it 2 gigs of RAM too, so I didn't want to overpower my MacBook here either. So there's our user PLS. Tap in our password, and boom, here we are. And then yeah, you can skip all this. You don't really need to go through any of this stuff. What was that? Yeah, Ubuntu Pro has got different stuff. Skip it. I don't want to send any telemetry stuff. Don't want to enable location services. That's it. There's even a software app library they have too that you can search and install stuff. And that's it. Now you got Ubuntu. You got Firefox here. Like I said, you got the terminal. You can do term. I like to add mine to the favorites. So that way it's already here. I can remove the help if I'm not interested in that, and other programs as well to clean it up and make it easier to use. But here we are. And that's your Ubuntu installation. Literally takes just, once you get set up, once you get downloaded ISO, you can use Rufus.io as the program to burn ISOs to disk if you want to boot from disk or sorry, not disk, boot from a USB, because most computers don't have disks these days. Yeah, here's updates. You can turn those on and off as you like. Updates recommended, but depends on your situation, whether server, desktop, all this stuff. And you can, once you have it on a USB, you boot from a USB, you get the prompt, go through the, click a few buttons, go through the basics of setup, username, time zone, all that stuff, and the installation happens in a few minutes. If you check download all the updates, it may take a few minutes longer, but that's about it. And now you got this. Yeah, your command line. If you want to do anything, you don't ever have to really touch command line if you don't want to. But if you're want to do some power user stuff, you need to touch command line. We go to Google. It's here. Looks like a regular computer, right? Go to activities if you want to look at your different windows and your different icons and stuff like that. There's settings. Go to settings. You can control the stuff too. Looks a lot like Windows in that way.